So Swiggy's huge, but as you said, it was only 30,000 orders when you started.
Mhm.
So take us back to year 2 at Swiggy when you were head of product. What were the things you guys were working on that helped propel you to this growth?
That's a very interesting question. One of the things that's different for companies that have hit an instant product market fit is that the product management function almost knows exactly what they want, because there are tons of things that come their way. Restaurant owners had like very obvious requirements that, hey, I can't grow on your app. I had registered. Where's my first order? I can't configure a discount. I can't upload my menu images. On the delivery side, it was even clearer. How is my earnings calculated a week for this order? How much should I get?
A lot of the listeners, I'm talking to them every day, and what I'm finding is that a lot of them run into this wall where they might have product management experience. In the US, to be a head of product at a company like Swiggy, they'll often have 20 years of product management experience. How did you expand your scope? Because you started as a PM, you started as an engineer even before that.
I think it starts with the mindset. I think if the individual really does not think about product management as this is my function of like being the glue in the system, like of course building technology, understanding users, start owning the final outcome. And if you start owning the final outcome, be prepared to essentially say what does it require for the company to solve this problem end to end.
We have perhaps one of the most well-known product leaders in India. He's been a PM since 2010 at all of the name brands in India, from Flipkart through Snapdeal, through Swiggy, and now ClearTrip. Welcome, Anuj Rathi.
Thank you, Aakash, for having me on the podcast. Really excited to be here.
So many of the listeners may not know Swiggy, how big of a giant it really is. And you came from Swiggy in year 2 all the way through year 9. You basically grew Swiggy. So you started as head of product. You ended up as SVP owning many, many functions. For those who don't know, give us a sense. What is the scale of Swiggy?
So Swiggy is one of the largest, quick commerce companies in India. It has many businesses, but largely what it's known for, its food delivery business, as well as its quick commerce, groceries, etc. business. When I had joined Swiggy, we were present in like 7 cities. We had just gotten into those, and we were doing like 35,000 orders a day. That's kind of to get you a sense of the scale. And today, I think Swiggy is doing around 10 times more of, 100 times more of what we were doing at that time. So couple of million orders, plus minus. It depends on weekdays versus weekends and food delivery versus quick commerce and so on. So really big business there. It's also entered into multiple other business lines, like actually going out. It has a bunch of things on the influencer side, etc. That they always keep on launching. So very large. I think that space in itself is kind of heating up a lot in India, and it's very unique to India. Like these quick commerce space, like throughout the world, I think many companies had popped up, but I think what India is witnessing, I don't think any other country is witnessing or possibly even can.
And for a sense of scale, we have a lot of American listeners. Swiggy is quite a bit bigger than DoorDash in terms of
That is
orders.
right, absolutely. In terms of number of customer service, number of delivery executives, it's like more than 500,000 delivery executives, number of restaurants that they've contracted, and overall share of restaurants orders that goes through a Swiggy is also quite large.
So Swiggy's huge, but as you said, it was only 30,000 orders when you started.
Mhm.
So take us back to year 2 at Swiggy when you were head of product. What were the things you guys were working on that helped propel you to this growth?
That's a very interesting question. One of the things that's different for companies that have hit an instant product market fit is that the product management function almost knows exactly what they want, because there are tons of things that come their way. So Swiggy, when we were doing at its end of year 1 in itself, I think it was in a few neighborhoods, and we've gotten the 3-way marketplace kind of kickstarted. We had a consumer side of the basic app which was running. We obviously needed a restaurant side of the app, which kind of could take orders and so on. There were 2 different apps. One is like for the restaurant owner to configure like the basic things like a menu, the price, and all of those. And the other one on the operation side, the guy who's actually sitting at the counter who would actually work on the order.
This episode is brought to you by Explo, a game changer for customer-facing analytics and data reporting. Are your users craving more dashboards, reports, and analytics within your product? Are you tired of building it yourself? As a product leader, you probably have these requests on your roadmap, but the struggle to prioritize them is real. Building analytics from scratch can be a time-consuming, expensive, and challenging process. Enter Explo. Explo is a fully white label, embedded analytics solution designed entirely with your user in mind. Getting started is easy. Explo connects to any relational database or warehouse, and with its low-code functionality, you can build and style dashboards in minutes. Once you're ready, embed the dashboard or report into your app with a tiny code snippet. The best part? Your end user can use Explo's AI features for their own report and dashboard generation, eliminating customer data requests for your support team. Build and embed a fully white-labeled analytics experience in days. Try it free at explo.co. That's explo.co. This episode is brought to you by Adio, the next generation CRM. Imagine a world where your CRM is powerful, easily configured, and actually intuitive. Adio makes that a reality. As I've profiled in the Product Growth newsletter, setting up Adio takes less than a minute, and within seconds of syncing your email and calendar, you'll see your relationships in one place, enriched with valuable data, including things like relationship strength. Adio lets you build Zapier-style automations, create powerful reports, and works for any go-to-market motion, from PLG to sales-led. Adio is designed for the next era of companies like yours. And companies like yours shouldn't have to deal with inflexible, one-size-fits-all CRMs. Join industry leaders like 11 Labs, Replicate, and Modal. Head to adio.com/productgrowth and you'll get 15% off your first year. That's attio.com/productgrowth.
So those two, as well as on the delivery side. And it was all skunkworks. So on the delivery side, it was actually initially managed on all through SMSs that hey, I've reached here, and that SMS would go, and then the delivery executive would understand or go to this particular address. So a very, very basic app had already been launched when I had joined. But on all the three sides on the three-way marketplace, there were some basic things. But now, given that we were in 7 cities and the business had started to grow, restaurant owners had like very obvious requirements that, hey, I can't grow on your app. I had registered. Where's my first order? I can't configure a discount. I can't, upload my menu images and so on. So extremely basic app, but you've got basically like tons of customer requirements on the restaurant side. On the delivery side, it was even clearer. Given that it's a dude on a bike. Now it needs to know where to go. There was no map. So for example, there was a bunch of things that hey, how is my earnings calculated a week, or for this order, how much should I get? How much should my earnings per hour be? And that had to be different across geographies. That had to be different across time zones, across tenure of the delivery executives, across, for example, are they a part-time or a full-time ones, and so on. So tons of things on that one. And on the consumer side, like we all understand, like, it was a very simple looking app. If you open it in the morning and you the afternoon, in the night, how should it actually behave? Like even simple choices, like at 8 o'clock in the night, we had like a very simple, very persistent issue. We used to call it a banner. A banner means, okay, we can't accept any orders anymore because all our delivery executives are busy. That's a persistent message that at 8 o'clock every night in most localities will come because there was just too much demand. Now there are essentially 10 strategies you can follow. You can basically say, should I reduce the number of customers that I will service? There are 1,000 customers knocking on your doorstep, but a 500 delivery executive workforce right now in an area. Should I say I'll service less number of customers? Or you can say, I should put surge pricing in. Maybe the richer customers or the people with the most need will order. Or you can put re-rank the restaurants so that it looks like, at least the close by restaurants are getting more orders. You can serve more customers with the same number of delivery executives. Or you can increase time per order. Instead of 30 minutes, we'll serve you, but it'll take 50 minutes on an average. Or you can actually create a disk of serviceability and discounts. So instead of 7 kilometer serviceability, you reduce it to 3. And then you got like this massive advantage that your delivery executives are not taking longer. Or you can actually cut out the discounts from the farther away restaurants so that the customers are not incentivized to order from those. Or you can increase delivery fee per kilometer. How do you even build that strategy, by the way? So that was the first thing that you'd go. And again, in freeway marketplace, you're not only optimizing for the customer, where I need to solve for the end consumer, that's one, but you're solving for all the three parties. What happens to conversion and retention is one thing. But what happens to earnings per hour? And what happens to the restaurants if we don't give them enough orders during their peak times? Will they continue working with us in the way that they are? So very hard problems, but needed extremely straightforward, like once you've decided solutions. Uh, so we had our hands full solving extremely tough problems, really not knowing fully what we have gotten ourselves into, but solving a freemium marketplace. And that's how the job looked at that time.
What were some of the product features that you remember that really propelled growth? People are always like, they want to latch on to, oh, they did this, they did that. And as a product leader, I've realized since that that's not how we think. But for those ones, there's usually 2 to 3 that stand out. What are those ones that you
Mm.
remember that, wow, when we launched that, we really saw the growth tick up right away?
Surprisingly, it was a lot of basic things that had to come together that enabled us to launch more cities and run it more predictably. That actually drove growth the most in a sustainable fashion. Now we are talking about disproportionate growth, like things which one wouldn't kind of expect. So we had like a different growth team, and it was called Growth X, literally. That was tasked with creating a 0 to 1, consistent products. Um, Essentially opening up Swiggy to beyond the core food delivery interface in the most basic fashion possible. On what do we do that? So two features, or actually three of them, that I feel kind of went, either I would say very successful, or at least saw like a lot of scale that could give us disproportionate growth. One was called Swiggy Pop. Um, the other one became Swiggy Daily, and the third one became Swiggy Stores, which became Instamart now, which is the quick commerce, like the huge behemoth that we are seeing right now. So the first one, Swiggy Pop, for example, now we understood that, hey, all of these three pieces of the marketplace, consumers, restaurants, and delivery executives, while we have created a basic interface where consumers can come, but it's a 20-step journey. Like really, like go choose a restaurant, go back. I don't want a biryani, I want a pizza and something else, and so on. So, like the step one is choosing a restaurant. And now in India, it's unlike the US, where in the US, here, a standard restaurant will have or a medium restaurant will have a 40-item menu, but in India, you'll have 200-item menu. Most of them are multi-cuisine, and people mix and match. And usually, if you mix and match, it'll become at least for two people. For a single person, there's usually not much there. A lot of that has changed over the last 7-8 years. But at that time, that was like an obvious problem that for a single person looking to eat something, there is nothing available. And restaurants are only going to serve if I now mix match which sabzi, which roti do I order, and which dal. But if I order all of these things, then it becomes like a meal for three. What can I order for myself? Or should I just go to a McDonald's where like at least they have something? It was a big problem. So, and we were also seeing like a lot of like connecting the dots on the delivery executive side, on the restaurant side as well. So we conceptualized a product essentially for a very specific persona, which is an office goer that is kind of in a meeting and is very busy at 12:30, and he doesn't really care about like a perfect meal that I want if I had like 45 minutes to choose from, and then it'll come and all of that. So we conceptualize a product called Swiggy Pop, where essentially instead of like whatever these 18 steps, we can do it in 3 steps. Like literally go. There is no concept of a cart. There's no concept of a checkout. Here are the 10 things that are available right now to you. And you just choose, and you basically pay and you get done. In fact, most of the places we would not even ask for a payment because we have your payment details, or if you have ordered cash on delivery, that's popular in India. So literally cut down the 12-minute ordering journey to essentially less than a minute. Like that's how we kind of worked on, and it really took off. So it really worked for breakfast and lunches with our DG, because we knew that if you are sitting in a meeting room right now, and it's going to get over in 30 minutes, and if you really want to order something that just shows up in my doorstep in 30, 35 minutes, whatever, right? Good, healthy food that I don't need to worry about. I will choose from these 10. Something is North Indian, South Indian, etc. But it's all going to be in a bowl, so that I don't even need to open it. I'm going to be busy and I can eat it. So that kind of became like one of our. And it was like really helped by the supply that we had. We had already created for that one. So we had like a few brands which really specialize in those bowls. That was like a new food invention itself. Indian food in a bowl was not like something that was
Not a
known.
thing at all.
Yes, and so Swiggy had invented on the food side as well. And now then when we started really problem solving and how do we make this economically viable? It's not like something that, sure, a 150 rupees bowl shows up at my doorstep. Of course, it's great. But there is, unlike e-commerce, where a single delivery executive can basically take like 10, 20 items and go through the city and like just do those deliveries, or go to an apartment complex and do like 5 deliveries together. Food delivery is on demand. Like it's really one-on-one. So can you do batching? No, now it becomes a spatial problem. Literally during this time, you need to take a snapshot of XYZT and really say at this time, when we have these many different deliveries geographically located like this, and when orders are coming from here, and those distances are real time calculated, and when the restaurants must have those things pre-prepared, and how do we solve for wastage and other things? Because we need to really have those things pre-prepared. Otherwise, if they start preparing it on time, it doesn't work. So that became like a complex mathematical, analytical problem to solve. And then we solved that to some extent at least, so that we were able to make this, we are able to pay the delivery executives still the same amount that they would have gotten otherwise, and to the customers, like all of these use cases. And for the restaurants, because we were working with only a few restaurants, not every restaurant was available, right? Because it's only 10, 12, 20 items that we would show to the user. So how do we pick and choose those? Again, on a spatial network, where are these located? And do we have like a fast food restaurant and a South Indian and a North Indian, which we have like something. So imagine this on like a city scale, and you have to solve this problem like, hey, which areas do we launch and all of that. So that kind of became one. The other one was essentially our dabbling with the subscription program that was Swiggy Super. I think we just started with like, and again, it was again the same insight, like, manifesting in different ways. Single users are not getting like a lot of, bang for the buck. People in India, I'm sure across the world, definitely in India, are a lot more I don't want to use the word entitled, but they hate delivery fees. It's like, of course, it should all be baked into their price. I don't want to now worry about like how much money that the delivery executive is going to get, and like, so they don't really like appreciate that part. And we had run some experiments to understand, like when we gave like 100 rupee discount coupon versus when we just said free delivery, which cost us like basically half of that or lesser. There was like more adoption and retention of those users. So the intangible really beat the tangible. Like literally, you're getting 100 rupees off. And we said there is definitely something in there. There must have been something that Amazon got it right. Uh, Except that Amazon, when it was doing Prime, like either in US or in India, like or wherever, right? Like it still had a national catalog. Like how do you make like a Prime like program or like something else work hyper locally? And something that you launch because you're going to announce it across Swiggy. But now somebody who is, if you're in a location like Yelahanka, which is outskirts of Bangalore, they're because of the network, there are lesser number of restaurants, lesser number of customers with that disposable income, and so on. How will they take it? Will they not take it, etc.? And does it again become both economically viable for us and valuable for them? So but it really took like at a point like there were like good 25% of orders of Swiggy that was coming from that program. That eventually morphed into Swiggy Won. That we launched like a subscription program, which was a way more evolved program than Swiggy Super post pandemic. Which, and again, because I'm not at Swiggy right now, but in my guess, it would be more than like half of the orders that would be coming from the program. But that is also true for Amazon Prime, by the way. Like, what's your guess? And what percentage of Amazon orders come from Prime users or
Well,
tagged as
since you
Prime?
told me and I'm anchored, I'm going to say 75%.
I don't think it'll be close to 75%. Again, I may be wrong, but in India, last figures I heard were around 55 plus.
Wow.
So it is huge, especially in a country which does not want to pay for subscriptions at all. Like I think Swiggy was probably also one of the first companies that really was able to charge delivery fee from its users. So given that I have been at Flipkart a long time back, like in 2010 and so on, like it's been a bane of e-commerce. Like, how do you charge delivery fee? Because really, there's work happening. There's a delivery executive on the ground that's getting your stuff to you. Well, how do you charge the customer? So Swiggy was literally the first company that was able to charge delivery fee for 100% of its orders. And then, of course, as we moved towards like wider India, we had to change that. So that was like great. The third one was, and this was back in 2017-ish, like You know what? Once we've gotten like the three-way marketplace, right? What are the key things that we have, right? Like in terms of capabilities, and that's a different way of thinking about products, right? We definitely have the consumer base, which is looking for something quick. Like, and it's a premium customer base. There are only so many people in the country who would pay money for convenience. So compared to e-commerce, where a lot of people are doing e-commerce for price, I could buy a TV here. I could also buy it on your company in your company, but I'm choosing you for price, and I can wait for 4 days. But really, in a food delivery, you're choosing convenience, and you're paying money for that. So we have like a captive customer base, which really is India's most premium, comfortable with commerce, comfortable with payments online. Um, Almost everything is not cash on delivery. They trust you. Of course, trust is going to be built because you're delivering them things in 30 minutes, all of that. So that's one. B is you have got this really strong, amazing delivery network. What other use cases can you really solve? And that's when we started discovering around we can do grocery, we can do pharmacy, can we do alcohol delivery, can we do meat delivery, and so on and so forth. Or can we build an umbrella brand which does everything apart from food? In fact, why does a user need to buy anything? Can we just do a pick up and drop? Like, hey, from Aakash, get me this Rode mic and bring it to Anuj, and I'll just charge you for whatever it takes. So we started around those legs, and so there were actually four products that came out of that one, and we've had like our own learnings. Like Swiggy had its own set of learnings through the way. So Swiggy Stores, which was like the umbrella brand, I think eventually like pivoted model itself into dark stores rather than a third party marketplace, became Instamart. Um, and then there was Swiggy Go, which was a pickup and drop service that became Swiggy Genie, which is still live. There's alcohol delivery and others that are live in a few cities across India because there's a lot of regulation around that. So yeah, those were some of the products. Sorry, long answer to your question.
Wow. And it shows the breadth of thinking that you have to do as a head of product, because these aren't things that are just affecting, the software products. These are affecting everything you're doing, how you're managing your restaurant relationships, how you're merchandising to customers. So talk to us a little bit about how your role evolved at Swiggy over time and where it ended by year 9.
um, to be honest, I think the role was being a product head at so at any company which has an extremely large offline work. So we always thought of product management as somewhere in between high tech and high touch. So with when it comes to high touch, because Swiggy was one of the most is continues to be one of the most human intensive problem statements that brings convenience to the users. So product managers really, really needed to understand how does operations work, how do restaurant owners think, how do consumers think, how does traffic work, how does weather work, what price points work, um, you know, how do different cities operate? Like for example, in a Bangalore, like where you place an order, a delivery executive goes, the order is ready by the restaurant. But in a Kolkata, when you place an order, maybe the restaurant owner has not even started preparing because he wants you to come and give him money before he starts preparing. That's how cities operate differently and restaurants operate differently. So we really needed, people, product managers to really understand what's happening on the ground. But now come back to the technology part of it, or the core, like what does the consumer see, or the digital part of it. They had to be super strong also on all of those things. Real consumer insights that you decide to work on, or real restaurant delivery executive insights and so on that you need to work on. That's one. But nobody can solve for just one problem in isolation. You cannot solve for a consumer problem in isolation. You cannot solve for a search problem uh, understanding only consumer search. You still need to understand restaurants and how ads will work hyperlocally. You still need to understand delivery executives, because if you change the algorithms and if it changes earnings per hour, what are you going to do about that? So all the three were very interconnected. So I think the role of a product manager was really like this, almost like a butterfly. Like the right side of the wing is like really understanding the full breadth of the market, the three-way marketplace, and the left side on the technology spectrum. Um, Forget the consumer side of things, but even like the 10 choices that I talk about that you can make on, for example, if there are 1,000 delivery executives, 1,000 customers knocking at your door of the app, but only 500 users, which strategy to choose? Like, should I apply surge, or should I change, remove or reduce the radius of delivery, or should I apply more delivery fees, or should I re-rank? How do you choose that? And that's a deeply technical question that you need to experiment and work on. The other challenge also was that usually A/B testing will not work or give you direct results, or not usually, but in many cases, because A/B on the consumer side will change the network design or the outcome of the delivery network with two different kind of actually orders coming into the network itself. So we had to like reinvent a lot on that part as well.
So you ended up going beyond product and
Yes.
having a bunch of functions. How did that growth look like for you?
I think it was an amoeba-like growth to be honest to begin with, because like we actually understood we were like a fluid leadership team. Essentially, we understood that what is important, and then we started like building teams, and leaders were quite open with respect to either taking more or giving up something when something else was required. For example, when I was thinking of all of product management and so on, we in a few months we got like somebody who was only dedicatedly looking at delivery executives and customer experience and that side, or the restaurant ops side and so on, right? And then it grew into, like, for example, we knew that different cities need to have different kind of storefronts. In the morning, it should look like very different versus the evening versus in the afternoon in events. Now, India goes on events very often, and there's some of the other festival that goes on, and we always wanted to have, I should look like really if the Diwali is coming up and so on, so it looks like Diwali and so on. So the merchandising function was born. We also understood there was a lot of coordination that is required within teams. So the program management function was born. So that used to report into me. There was one very obvious restaurant problem that, hey, I've onboarded new, I've not yet gotten my first order. What can I do? And we started experimenting with the Google Sheets that we floated out to the restaurants, and it was like filled in 10 seconds. That I want to pay you money so that I can grow. With that, the ad product was born. So ads also kind of started rolling up into me. Then we started experimenting with 0 to 1s. So then 0 to 1 team was born. And then, for example, we started working on Swiggy Super Program. So a membership team was born. So a lot of these things, which was not only product management as pods, they kept on getting born and kind of rearranged into like different leaders. By the end, so what I was leading was a revenue and growth, or central revenue and growth. Like, of course, we had arranged ourselves, like it's a complex business, into different kind of pods. So there's a food delivery pod with its own CEO and its own kind of what happens inside food delivery. There's an Instamart, or like a what do you say, quick commerce as a business. There was Genie. There were like different business units, and there were two central units. One was an operational unit that would do kind of all sorts of delivery and CX related stuff, because it had become its own thing. And my function was kind of at the top, which is essentially our relationship with the customer. So that function was essentially, it had marketing, it had merchandising, it had product management on the RNG side, it had the membership program, banking partnerships, 0 to 1s, which is called, again, newer things that will work for the user, and program management, and like a whole bunch of amalgamated units. But essentially, that was the last part. So the job was to not only acquire customers, but how do we move them up the TPC funnel, the transaction per customer per month. Again, Swiggy, just for scale and the frequency part, so that your audience kind of also can understand or appreciate that one. When a user is on Swiggy Won or a membership program, their frequency per month is around 20. Like that was again a year back when I had a year plus back. It's a lot of orders. That's how much they rely on Swiggy. So that was huge. Now, how do you get more and more customers to come in here and transact even more? And how do you get them to now then cross-pollinate to quick commerce and use Swiggy when you're dining out and others? It was a beautiful problem statement.
A lot of the listeners, I'm talking to them every day. I've been having all these events to learn more about them. And what I'm finding is that a lot of them run into this wall where they might have product management experience in the US. To be a head of product at a company like Swiggy, they'll often have 20 years of product management experience. But as these other functions are created, growth marketing, merchandising, partnerships, they often don't remain the leader of those functions. They might right when that function starts, but then what ends up happening is they'll hire somebody with 30 years of experience who has actually managed those other functions, and they'll hire other people who to lead those specific functions. And basically people get layered out and they don't end up having the breadth. that you had. So there was something you did, specifically you, in terms of how you were managing your career, how you were managing the executives to give them the confidence that, yes, Anuj is the person to continue to lead this. We're not going to layer him out. How did you handle that? How did you expand your scope? Because you started as a PM, you started as an engineer even before that. So
Yeah.
some people might have wanted to silo you just on that bucket.
No, absolutely. And to be honest, like now that you say that, yeah, there were a lot of times in the career when a lot of people were, or at least organizationally, they were designed so that this is what product management is, and this is what marketing is, and this is what growth marketing is, and this is what business is, and supply is, and so on and so forth. I think it starts with the mindset, Akash. In my opinion, I think if the individual really does not think about product management as this is my function of like being the glue in the system, like of course building technology, understanding users, and so on, but really, really caring like even beyond that, that I don't really care if it is getting my hands dirty and like riding a bike to like really get to a good answer there. It it so this of course part of the job in terms of product discovery for product manager, but don't stop there. Start owning the final outcome. And if you start owning the final outcome, be prepared to essentially say what does it require for the company to solve this problem end to end, and not only from a product and technology hat, but end to end. Like if it requires people, and if it requires a difference in org design, if it requires changes in OKR structures, if it requires even HR or brand, make sure that you are really thinking about all of those things and put it down. And if your org is intellectually honest, and if you've got the right leadership support, and if you have the right ears, then I think those traits are kind of seen very differently, because product people are not going to be able to do that. Because I'll tell you, Akash, what happens is product management or product managers, right? They already feel overwhelmed with the breadth of work that they're doing.
Yeah.
Now, if this means asking for even more breadth, then they will say like, all right, like I can barely even like satisfy my engineering manager who's asking for so many things, or my design manager, and what will I do there? Um, but I think like if you have to, I think product management is evolving more into a general management role, and you have to pick and choose. And and if it comes to the future, I'm actually predicting a lot more product managers who will be successful will be wearing the general manager hat. So that's my advice to all product managers: like own the outcomes, make sure that you are really understanding all of the parts, and don't be afraid that hey, this is where my line ends and somebody else needs to do that, or I'll make a soft recommendation and let other people, wiser people, do that. Like, if you really feel something is important, go and make that happen.
Now I want to shift to product management as a craft.
Yes.
You said operation stuff feels way more controllable and gives PMs the self-esteem of I did good, tangible product work. Explain that and what they should be focused on.
um, so let's take one step back on what product management. Actually, if you break it down into like two extremely very very high level, pointers on product management. One is around product discovery, on what we should be building that will resonate with the market and that will really wow the customer and all of those things. And B is how do we execute all of that stuff? And both of them are very like mind your own. I think product managers, and when I talk, especially in the context of India, where once something has been decided, either through strategy or through my own, help on product discovery, etc., let's get to the good parts. Let's get to the parts where, I can work with design, I can iterate on the requirements, I can actually work with engineers and so on. And there's a lot of work there. Work will fill up your time and make you overwhelmed if you just let it run its course. And also if you start getting good at it, and also if you start kind of both good at it and start feeling the frustrations of it. Why is this engineer not coding fast enough? Why can't I get that QA build to the users as fast as I can? Why is this OKR planning stuff taking so much more? Where is the influence and all of those things? Um, and but the point is, it's a harder part to actually think and create something, even conceptualize that to a point which is a product that will really resonate with the customers, actually getting it in the hand of the customers and making sure that you understand that part and growing from there, rather than the part which is I would not call it only execution slash operational, but things in the life of a PM, which is the day to days. And so, so that's an extremely high level breakup of those. And what I've noticed as a trend is most product managers, especially in the early to mid stage, and even at the senior stage, now I'm starting to notice, are have gotten quite good at the second part, which is product execution. And what my urge to product managers more is, especially as we see the product management field evolving, is that you need to be closer to things which are more unknown, and your ability to draw out something which is unknown from the unknown and a highest probability winning known from the unknown. That is the part that you need to focus on a lot. Now, don't get me wrong. Even if you craft something or in your mind, hey, this is the kind of product that we need to build that will really resonate. I think Steve Jobs once famously said about this part. Great ideas almost never come out in the first iteration. Like you need to now start iterating with your teams and actually bring it back and actually see, is it working, not working? What are the tiny chiseling that I need to kind of keep on doing to make this product really work? So you need to still do that part more. All I'm saying is shift your focus. Say today is 30/70 or 20/80, more focus towards execution. Internally, what do I need to do? To more an external focus, product building, which actually gives you a lot more understanding, for example, of your industry or what are the kind of things that have worked, or even outside the industry, what are the inspirations that I can seek and draw and build something of value that will be either a disruptor or a true competitive beater or something that just delights a customer.
And I think that PMs probably they know this, right? As you said, our time just gets filled up, our calendar gets booked, triple
Yes,
booked from 9 to 5
yes.
with execution. So what are the tools, what are the tactics, the techniques that you coach your PMs on in order to free up the space to even do this work?
That's an excellent question. I think there are two things that are extremely important here. I think one, really something which every product manager should really think about even before joining a company is, what does the product leadership look like? I think if you haven't even been good cards, then it's very difficult to kind of shine out from there. So really, really look at what kind of product leadership slash general leadership in your company, in your potential company looks like. Are they the ones where you are going to be in like a role which is mostly execution, and most of the teams are kind of structured that way? Like Marty Kagan says, like it's like, is it a product team or a feature team? I think it all is kind of the same philosophy. um, Look at how products in the past have been developed in the company. How many iterations did they go through? Did they take more time in product discovery or product iterations as they were building the products? Or requirements are kind of frozen and now let's get to the OKRs and let's get to execution and let's get to influencing that engineering team versus this one. Let's get to metrics. There are a few telltales there, right? Like if company is extremely focused on metrics, and that's how product decisions are more focused on rather than say intuition or empathy. Uh, so those are things that to watch out for even before you join a company. Now I know that not everybody is working in a dream company, and not everybody can potentially work in a dream company even if they wanted to, because there's only so many companies and so many jobs versus like number of PMs and the roles that they are going to go after. Even if you are in a company which does not kind of have the mechanics or machinery to be able to do that, but the attitude can still be adjusted. Like always think about challenging the status quo with respect. Don't get married to a solution versus a problem. There will be a time when, so essentially, when you will need to be married to a solution and say, okay, enough is enough. Now we need to start executing. But always keep on thinking around that attitude towards, can I, am I missing something? What is it that the 10% addition that I can do to make this product fly 100x better than we want it? And what is the best thing that I can do to increase the probability of success? Usually, that answer I've seen is not in fast execution by crunching the timeline from 4 months to 3 months or something like that. It may be a case sometimes where your competitor has made a public announcement or something like that, and usually your company will pressurize you to do things faster, do more with less, and all of that. But that's not how winning products are built. So if your attitude always is around, all right, I will kind of take this in my stride, and I know that 99% of the people are telling me to just launch faster, polished products. But if your mindset is around, let me do a continuous product discovery, and I am myself comfortable with changing specs at the last moment, uh, if not changing completely, but challenging those things at the last moment, and having the authority, or having the at least the mindset of going and asking somebody else, can you make these few tweaks because something new came out.
Trust isn't just earned, it's demanded. Whether you're a startup founder navigating your first audit or a seasoned professional scaling your GRC program, proving your commitment to security has never been more critical or more complex. That's where Vanta comes in. Businesses use Vanta to establish trust by automating compliance needs across over 35 frameworks like SOC 2 and ISO 27001. Centralized security workflows, complete questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and proactively manage vendor risk. Vanta can help you start or scale your security program by connecting you with auditors and experts to conduct your audit and set up your security program quickly. Plus, with automation and AI throughout the platform, Vanta gives you time back, so you can focus on building your company. Join over 9,000 global companies like Atlassian, Quora, and Factory who use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. For a limited time, my listeners get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/Aakash. That's VANTA.com/AAKASH for $1,000 off.
So you're really well known for this 4BB framework.
Mhm.
If people don't know it, what is it and how can they use it?
uh, Look, so product prioritization, or really this framework kind of came out of a company prioritization work that we were doing along with Swiggy leadership and so on. And like we were talking about in the earlier segment. Now, if imagine if you have a team of only 50 engineers and only like say 7, 8 product managers, right? And you have this massive three-way marketplace problem that came out, right? Like now, how do you prioritize even in sequence? Like if I put all the 50 engineers on the delivery executive side of the problem, they could happily be working for 4 years and still not have done enough. Or you could have been working on the customer problem or the restaurant problem and so on. That's where we started. And how do we prioritize when like everything looks uh, broken, so you have to fix a lot, but at the same time everything looks like so optimistic that uh, if we build this like completely different segment on quick commerce, we'll win, even if it comes at the cost of, for example, lagging a little bit behind on food delivery or something like that. So that also looks good. But hey, we have all of these regulatory issues and tax related things and so on. That's compliance and so on. So when you get overwhelmed, you need to really focus. Like, and that's where we found ourselves in back in 2016, 17, 18 days, right? So we essentially said, it is around thinking in bets. So we built out this framework. So I and Ashish, we kind of co-authored this one. Where we said, let's put down all the 4 things or the 4 areas around which we could be taking bets, and combine full stack of these 4 bets. How does it look like with respect to outcomes? That's a desirable outcome with its risks. So the 4 BBs are, if you look at the most grounded BB here, is called Brilliant Basics. It's where all your tech debts sit, your platforms sit, your core things that will move, help you move faster if you go slow right now. Like all of the technology parts where, any migrations on technology that need to happen, etc., etc. And we had, in fact, even put any compliance, any taxes, basic building blocks of your business on top of which business is going to be built. So that's the first Brilliant Basic. The second one is what we call bread and butter. Like this is essentially a product backlog. If the product manager had no direction and is told you cannot take any more bets, all right, here is the products that you inherited. What would you organically do if you had to like grow these lines of product areas? What are the 20 things? And they could be like feature enhancement, bug fixes, they could be A/B tests, and growth hacks, and all of those things kind of sit in that bucket. The third one is what we call the third BB is a big bets. What are the big bets that the company is going to take? And the big bet is going to be defined very differently compared to like a regular product enhancements and so on. Those are large bets that usually need cross-functional alignment. One individual team cannot take that, usually needs a sponsor who will make everybody come together and take that bet. And that bet better be right. You need a high judgment individual who will take like the day-to-day understanding of, I do a little bit less here, do a little bit more here. A lot deeper consumer research is going to be required. A lot better financial modeling is going to be required. Maybe it's an external partnership that needs to come in to make it happen, where the complexity is extremely high, but the bet size is also high. So that's kind of the third big bet framework. And the fourth one, literally we called it, like we got cheesy, we said it's called Breaking Bad. Like it's where the company is going to make either a strategic pivot or an extremely different, uh, outsized bet in an area that is not even known for. It's going out of your comfort zone as a company and not only as a product. So you were known for travel and you went for grocery delivery, like something like that. Like it's that kind of thing, right? So essentially, at the very very high level, what a product leader or product strategist needs to do is collect all of those ideas and kind of understand the leadership and kind of understand the market dynamics and kind of understand also key. Are we in a position or are we in a state where we need to do a strategic pivot, or we have identified an opportunity that is so big that if not for this particular time and this state of affairs with competition and consumer habit changes, if we don't take it right now, we may miss the bus. So it better get into the Breaking Bad part, or the big bets are going to be like that, and of course, like it's a full stack thing. Now, what once you put all of those items in there, then the point is around curation. So what a product strategist needs to do here is once you've collected all of this information, and usually not all of this information is going to come to you in a very structured way. Maybe on the brilliant basics, yes, because your engineering team has already done kind of like hard work of identifying things, and your product manager usually will have some sort of a running backlog. So those two areas you may have some information that's come to you, and you need to make high judgment calls on which are the things that are urgent and important that I need to do this year, otherwise something will break. Whereas it is okay to kind of accumulate tech debt. The second one is really about product debt. Like where do you want to keep accumulating product debt? What are the product that needs to be paid off right now? And the third one is around which bets do we need to take / pivots, right? So what essentially the product strategy needs to do is create like three diverse looking packets which contain like it's say 25% coins that will go in here versus there versus there versus there, and it may change from say strategy one option to a strategy two option. In strategy two option, for example, I'm putting a lot more focus on winning through say the delivery executive side. Like this is the wedge that I want to take. My incentive structures are not going to be on the consumer side, but on the delivery side. And here's the technology that we are making, and here is the best that we are taking, that we are going to acquire a company, and here are the things that we're going to do to, for example, make their earnings per hour rather than per order versus we'll make it like something else and name that strategy and say that this year looks like strategy two. Does that sound good to you? And the strategy one is, for example, around it's a risky consumer strategy. Just like label this. So when you're saying a risky consumer strategy means, okay, 40% of or 25%, 30% of our company's energy is going to go in Breaking Bad because there's an opportunity that we have identified. And if miss the bus, it's going to be catastrophe, right? Um, but by definition, it's Breaking Bad. It is risky. That means by definition we won't have like as many resources to put in engineering on the core brilliant basic side, or we'll keep accumulating some product backlog. We may lose out on competition in this 1 year because they would have built a lot more if they're following a different strategy. So that essentially looks like a balanced point of view with the appropriate risks and rewards that you need to take as a strategy. The 4BB framework kind of lets you articulate those things much better. And that really what do you say? There are 2 points here. The product leader here will need to not only create the strategy, but articulate to rest of the leadership and get the conversations going and kind of understand from all of them that, we feel confident as a company that we should be taking this bet. Because they would have heard it from like 20 other people. But now, if we are saying that we want to take this bet and drive that conversation, okay, let's take this bet. But here is where I'm telling you that we are not going to be able to do a bunch of these basic things that we've been asking for, and we should be okay living with that. That's where the top level prioritizing comes in.
And I think the powerful thing about this framework, where most product leaders and product managers get caught up, is everyone says, yeah, this guy is stupid. He's not seeing these obvious problems
Yes.
in this product. But what you're doing by presenting these three options is you're telling people these are the intentional trade-offs we're making.
Yes.
These are the things we're not doing.
Absolutely. And I think the point is to do this at a company level, because you know what, everybody who's working in a smaller team or a pod or something can look at only the horizon that they're working on, and that horizon could be looking like, hey, I have this fantastic product roadmap in front of me. Only if my leadership supported me a little bit more with some resources as well as some guidance to pursue and like just finish this off, I'm sure this feature looks much better than anything that the competitors have launched. Or it's absolutely something that my consumers would love, right? Like, so all of those things. Now you're putting an overall umbrella and saying, you know what? This is the entire strategic landscape around which we are playing. And in this stage of the company, like, let's take instead of 2017, 18, as say 2020 or some other year as an example, the same framework would throw up something else. Say, we are not taking any break bets this year. We are comfortable as a company. Zero. We are going to take the, but we are going to take like 5 strategic bets or big bets this year that absolutely get right. The process to run the big bets also will be different. Now you'll write a PR FAQ. Now you'll collect a lot more data. Now any product manager who's working on a bet, by definition, will leave their functional things and will need to contribute a lot more to the big bet versus the product backlog that they were working on themselves. So it puts things in perspective. Why am I getting out of this work and working on this big bet that I'm not even convinced whether it should be taken or not. So that kind of brings the bottom up and the top down together in one easy to understand way why we are doing it. And it's incredibly powerful because all the 4 buckets are actually going to be executed very differently. The artifacts will be different. The timelines will be different. The error rates that are going to be expected of them will be very, very different, and so on.
So you just touched on this point around company strategy. And I think there's this debate that still exists in the product management world. You have Marty Kagan on one side, basically, and he's very influential, where he says, you need really good product leaders to create really good product strategy. And then on the other side, you basically have the rest of the world who's telling their ICPMs, you're not strategic enough. How do we understand this dichotomy here? What should your average ICPM be building, and what should your product leader be building? Who should own what parts of the strategy?
It's an interesting question, and correct the 2 points that we covered earlier in the podcast, Akash. Look at for example, the product managers who are more internal feature focused versus product managers who are very externally focused. When I'm saying externally, of course, it needs to manifest itself into great products that you are building, but who actually understands the market, the consumer insights, the behaviors, the competition, and a lot of connecting the dots from other categories which are not even in their particular company and so on, right? And those product managers, and if they are going to be able to contribute to the strategy a lot more, because they're at least the building blocks of the strategy, which is just information as well as the insights are coming from a lot more other places rather than just getting deep into execution. So that's the building blocks of this part. And now the way it manifests when you go even more senior, for example, if you're a director of products, so maybe you're not looking at the company strategy, but you're at least looking at the overall strategy for your product line. And unfortunately, if you have come from the background of product managers who are focused mostly on execution, your current mindset will still look like I'm not like completely on execution, but you are not going to be able to be a strategist because you have not trained your mind or you've never seen building a strategy and failing in it. You've never seen contributing to a strategy and seeing like how it was actually created, what were the trade-offs that were made, and seeing that either fail or succeed. So you're not trained yourself for that part. And God forbid, if you like even get promoted and become the CPO, then you have to leave strategy completely to, like, let's say, a CEO or a chief strategy officers or forces that be. So it's not only what an ICPM does, but it's as a group, the entire company, what they're doing. But my preference is, as even if you're extremely young, be extremely inquisitive, be extremely nimble, and kind of try to understand why are decisions being taken the way they are. Try contributing with a lot of facts, insights, and key figures if you can find them. Try to get into the coterie of people who are building the strategy, even as an apprentice, and that will help you a lot more in your product management career. And even if you want to expand from product management to general management, and if you actually want to become a CEO someday or something else, this is like a great stepping stone towards that. And you're not becoming like only a product first leader, but a leader that can lead the entire company.
And one of the realizations I had when I became VP of product and was heading all of the product teams was that the job was not what the 15 prior years had trained me to do. Talk to us a little bit about how the job changes and how your mindset should change and how that impacts how you're working.
Uh, I think a lot has been talked about and in this podcast also, we have talked a lot about like, how do you think about as an entry level PM or like as a PM with like 2, 3, 4 years of experience? There, I think a large part of what at least I value is actually insights generation and the product craft. I also value a lot of like execution muscle, but that comes only in as a negative point if it doesn't happen properly. This they can almost like assume that you will be great at building relationship, partnerships, and so on, etc. So you'll do all of that, but really the value is in, are you actually a great person at generating actionable insights and the hypothesis that you create of those, because the same insight can give you like 10 different hypotheses. How do you choose which one to act on and the craft of building great products? That's where I think like it's kind of an ICPM should spike on, and they need to have like great amount of grit to be able to do that, because most of the times these are places that there's no clear answer. Execution has a clear answer whether did it get shipped or not, and that's why I said like a lot of people think I did good, tangible, amazing work, where these things don't have like a great answer. You need to keep on like getting into that battle every day. As you grow a little senior, like I would say, just almost just three different places. As you grow a little senior, I think you need, or say 7, 8 years of product experience and so on. Beyond all of this, you also become a manager of managers. And I think this is where what they call the messy middle comes in. Um, and the messy middle is where now a lot of junior people rely on you to be able to take a decision, and a lot of senior people almost like completely rely on you to kind of execute that. And these two worlds are extremely different. And the messy middle is really an art of balance, because your CPO or your CEO, etc., are almost expecting you to be on the same mental bandwidth when we are talking about something which is important. That's what the company should do, and you're not yet trained to be able to do that. So, kind of being able to understand, comprehend, translate. One, B, now from bottom up, how are you able to synthesize all the insights and the products that are going to come up here, and being able to like put it together into a comprehensive product plan and actually being able to execute. So that's a new part that gets added. Also, people management. I think now is where you really need to understand whether what kind of product school you come from, or mentally how you're wired, and the role and the wider set of responsibility. Is it actually the same, or do you need to evolve a little bit more and really find out your management style in terms of how do you get different product managers to actually give their best. In fact, this is also the time when you need to know, should I just inherit this team? Should I keep some people out of this one and bring some fresh blood in? Hiring becomes extremely important. And then actually retention, incentive structures, like how do I motivate people, both financially as well as like what is it that what these people actually like doing? All of those things are going to be very new. Well, while they're true even for engineering or ops or business and so on, I think being a manager of product managers is a completely different ballgame. I've held this opinion for a long time, because each one of them is a product strategist, at least an evolving one. So these are like 10 leaders that you're now reporting into you. So it really should train you for something else. But that's something else is like, for example, when you're VP, SVP, CPO, that's kind of the top one. Where I, in fact, like come to think of it very deeply, that's a very different role than people even imagine how it is. I think there are two large parts that they have to sort for. Too large, and then there are, of course, many common leadership parts. One is really your job is to do the org blueprinting. I think there's so many CPOs who still don't really think it's their job to do org design. I think if you need to be able to build products, and if you need to build winning products that can actually go and win and build a robust model, at least on influence or completely own, how should like the organizational design itself look like? That one, and B, how does the ways of working look like? Should we actually follow a BB framework or an OKR process or something else? How do these wires kind of connect and look at like almost like a like outside of the system, that are we actually the right machinery that can deliver the right products or that can deliver the right business results? So one, there's so many CPOs who don't do this, but really that's one place where I think CPOs must really get into that. That's one. B is not only product strategy, actually company strategy. So these are the two places where I think that they both, where CPOs say, I will do product org design and I will do product strategy. But I think given the C-level nature, and I think either they contribute more than 50% to the company strategy or own it completely. I think that's one place where CPOs have to play. Apart from, of course, owning the product mark and whatever we talked about in the other places. So those are kind of the three levels.
That's what I found as well, is it's 3 different jobs
Yes.
along the way, and the funny thing is that being really good at the first job doesn't immediately prepare you for the second, and being really good at the second doesn't immediately prepare you for the
Yes.
third, but you're usually promoted into these, you did a really good job at one and they push you into it.
Yeah.
And then we see these very short tenures, right, of CPOs and
And CGOs
SVPs.
and all of that. They're shortest tenures. I don't know who I was talking with a couple of weeks back. I think it's a half of a tenure of a CMO, for example, of chief marketing officer, or chief business officer, and so on. And that is the case for two reasons. I think of all the things that I talked about, I think there's a huge amount of overlap between what a CPO will do versus somebody else will do. If I do strategy, product strategy, then hey, that's what the CEO is for. Also, then how do you partner, collaborate, or take it away from them, and so on. And if you are a software first company, literally your company is the product to the large extent. Like, of course, there are commercials and marketing and all of that. But the keys to success actually sits with the product head. And if you are extremely successful, uh, then so at least these are two places that I've found in my career when I've seen CPOs or VP products not actually being able to make it. There are two scenarios, right? Or three. One is either you are too successful, then the company does a reflection. If I can get this product head to lead us to success, could we be getting even better if we had a different product head? Those are questions, by the way, that happen. Or if you're not successful, or if your company is, hey, we knew it. So this product head can't lead us to that level. We took a bet and so on. And that's the dichotomy of it. So the head of products and so on needs to really build like that trust and relationship with the rest of the C-suite to be able to do like a really good job at that.
These days, everybody's talking about AI. How important is it for PMs and product leaders to be using these tools, in your opinion?
Right. I think it's an excellent question. And to be honest, Akash, I'm not the authority on this one. But here are some of my thoughts. Okay. Uh, One point is around any industry really is going to be touched by AI, either in small ways or large ones. Um, AI can also be like thought about. The familiarity of AI is going to be absolutely crucial for any PM what they solve. They need to be really need to be understanding the domain that they're working in and which are the areas that are going to be either touched or completely transformed by AI. And that will need familiarity both with your domain a lot, as well as the current tools, technologies, and trends that are going in AI that has a potential to be able to change that, right? So the connection of the dots will not happen unless you deep with AI itself. Now, the jury is out with respect to whether you want to go deep into this, into a particular, because AI is not just one or two things. There you can build like an entire career just out of becoming an AI master. So you will need to pick and choose, but you need to be able to have the right amount of judgment to understand how deep do I want to go in a particular area versus how wide I want to go. But there is no doubt in my mind that every product manager should be proficient at AI to a level where they are able to understand how much the domain is going to shift and be able to connect the dots. B, need to be able to connect with the engineers at the right level so that they are able to use the right words and use the right kind of under common shared understanding for them to be actually able to change or build it in their roadmaps.
People are worried about the future of product management. There's one school of thought, which is that, okay, AI is going to make PMs more efficient, more effective. PMs might use Claude or Chat PRD to write their PRDs. Maybe
Yeah.
then those go faster. They might use an AI tool to analyze their user interviews and to analyze their customer support tickets to do discovery better. So in that world, they're thinking, okay, PMs will become better. But then they also look at designers and engineers and they say, well, they're going to be more efficient and more effective too.
Mhm.
And so there's this other world that they're sort of arguing that, your designers and engineers, they're going to take over product management. What's your forecast here? And how do people who are in the seat, make sure that they're future proofing their career?
I think once again, it's connecting back to the earlier points that we were discussing in the podcast. While if at least my judgment, that AI is first going to be an efficiency tool rather than an effectiveness tool. And when I say the efficiency tool, every part of the process, whether it is actually doing consumer research, it's actually designing something, rapid prototyping, uh, actually building the product out with your engineers, taking it out, launching and getting more data on that. All of those are going to be more efficient because AI is there. Um, and I think a lot of that fluff that actually happens within the organization to be able to actually execute faster, I think execution is going to get better. And that a lot of the program management part of the product craft or job that was there, I think are going to get a little lower, right? And that's where this, in my opinion, a lot of scare is coming from. That hey, uh, if PRDs are going to get written by AI, or at least like 50% of them, like what am I going to do? Like literally not like that, but a large part of the work is going to be taken up that. But what's at least that's my deep belief, that finding out gaps in the market where you should be actually placing the bet, where you should actually be thinking about, should I double down on this part for 3 years straight versus leave it in say as a small experiment after a week, building the conviction about the market, building the conviction about what kind of products should we be building, and deciding how much amount of craft that goes into that versus placing strategic priorities, bets, and all of those things. They strictly, strongly remain in the domain that, at least for the foreseeable future, AI is not going to touch at a very high level. It may give you recommendations, but you still need to be able to build that conviction and do the strategic prioritization, make sure that the craft in the appropriate products is actually going above and beyond what a regular team of product managers, engineers, or journalists will be able to do. And that again brings us back to product will need to start owning a lot of the outcomes in the external market rather than only internal execution, OKRs, building the product in the right time, and those things. So if you want to really future-proof yourself, I think that seems to be like the right direction for me to go. Don't only own the internal metrics and products, the input ones, own the outputs, which is own the actual products that are going to get launched, and own the outcomes, which are the metrics. So be a lot more external facing as you're going there. Not only it helps you as a product manager and go rise up in their career, but it also opens up a lot of general management opportunities for you. You can actually then expand into marketing. You can actually expand into business. You can actually expand into strategy or expand into a CEO. The best of all, you'll also be a great or a fantastic founder.
I think your career is the perfect example for how to future-proof yourself as a PM. Is don't constrain yourself to PM, right? To think about the broader business, to start to say, once I'm a head of product, once I'm a VP of product, what are the necessary functions? You gave the examples of merchandising in Swiggy's case. I'm
Yes,
sure growth marketing comes in for many
right.
companies. For SaaS companies, I think customer success often comes into
Yes.
the picture. So it's about having that output mindset. And what I find is that PM is one of the most adaptable fields. I think when you and I joined in 2008. We were obsessed with features. We were obsessed with outputs. We finally adapted to outcomes. And I think the next adaptation is going to be this adaptation towards general management, towards larger business strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there may look, the good part that I feel is there are different kind of people who come and become CEOs, right? There are a lot of people who would have come from the sales background. You really have a history of really cracking deals and making the company large by having a lot of customers, given that product is there. At least in India, I've seen like a lot of CEOs coming from the business side of things. That I started as a business manager or owning a small business unit, but I was a P&L owner. The P&L owner kind of goes on and becomes like a CEO or something. There are fewer product founders that actually go and become. Actually, to be honest, a lot of them actually do become product founders also. If product managers of today train themselves to become a general manager from the get go, it becomes much, much better as you go rise up the ranks, either as a CEO or as a person who would found a company themselves. So in both cases, that future proofing definitely does happen. And I'm seeing increasingly more and more PMs actually starting to get into it. So that's a great sign.
Yeah, I think that the field is evolving and I haven't seen any negative impact of AI. So one of the things I get to do that I'm like privileged to do in my position as kind of a researcher of the field is look at where are people going? What are the roles? What is the number of PMs? So I
Hmm.
think a lot of people don't know. Like if I ask them how many PMs are there in India, a lot of people may not even know that there are almost 100,000 PMs in
Yeah.
India. There are 500,000 PMs in the US. And what happened in 2022 was we did see a decline in both geographies. We saw layoffs.
Yes.
And in 2023, it was flat. But actually, now we're speaking at the end of 2024, we've finally seen that growth again. And I
Yes.
think it's because of the adaptability of the
Hmm.
field. And the people who are drawn to PM and who can stay are high achievers. And so they're not going to suddenly be absorbed by AI.
Absolutely. And and I've taken some time to kind of like study a few fields in the companies that I've operated in, and had a look at like how many of those fields are completely going to be disrupted versus actually AI helping the PMs to come to better decisions slash execution. So look at like three of them, like at least that I've seen, right? One, like right now I'm looking at travel as an industry, and this is an OTA. I work at ClearTrip. It's a 5x5 business. Like we have 5 lines of businesses across 5 channels. So it's flight, hotels, buses, trains, and packages. Across ClearTrip, which is the B2C app, and Flipkart Travel, these are two different ones. And then there is our agents business. So ClearTrip also powers agents, which can do bookings for you. It also powers corporates. So we do have like two B2B businesses, actually three. So we go to corporates and they can use it at their corporate travel desk. And there's an API business. So there's other websites that can be powered. So it's a 5x5 matrix on this part. Now, in any of those businesses, actually, once you start getting into the depth of how does flight even work? What are the kind of things that you can actually do with respect to if you had to launch something new with AI today, will you be able to disrupt that? For example, I think quite likely no, because 99% of the work that needs to happen still will need to happen. You still need to work with 150 plus airlines, still need to crack the deals and have the relationships to be able to actually do that. You need to work with banks. You need to make sure that all the technologies that are there, could be GDS or NDC or like with low craft carriers, all the API integration, everything will need to be there. Possibly a few things will change, and they must change on the discovery side of things. But anybody who's running any airlines business or any OTA business will tell you that sure, AI is going to have an impact, but there's nothing close to disruption. And you can look at like they're in hotels, and you can look at the same thing in packages or any other thing in any channel. Now I'm saying like it doesn't even need to be a B2C channel or a B2B channel. You will still need to go to the corporate and crack that deal at the rate that they want. So none of those things are changing. What definitely is changing is each part of the efficiency funnel. AI will bring, if identified well, a lot of efficiencies to those. Maybe in some cases it will change a particular module all by itself, etc. So I've looked at some of those things and said it will definitely aid. The number of fields that will completely disrupt are possibly not going to be as high as it was initially imagined. Now, having said that, if you are a PM with AI proficiency, it gives you a massive edge over somebody who does not, because now you can look at like your entire suite and say, all right, there were like some 30 things that needed to happen before my product goes to the end consumer. And I can identify like 12 of those that will be done better by AI, and I'll prioritize those things. It becomes an organic part of your roadmap and all of those things.
Where I want to end is this job searching journey. I think there's very little information, especially at the senior levels, of how do you land, head of product at Swiggy, which is what you started at, or how do you land CBO at ClearTrip. So talk to me a little bit about your job searching strategy and how you landed these roles that many people listening would want.
Let me tell you about the strategy at when I was at when I had just joined Swiggy. We'll come to ClearTable a little later. So back in 2016, I was in this company called Snapdeal in Delhi. It was India's number 2 e-commerce company at that time, quite large. Amazon had just entered and so on. But I had decided to move back to Bangalore. There were a lot of reasons which had prompted me around like looking at like, hey, what should I be doing next? Uh, and again, I looked at like 4 key pointers for me, what I wanted for my next job. Um, the first thing that I was looking for at that time, which is A, I want to be working in a Series C to Series D company. I was already AVP product there because Series C to Series D company would mean that A, I'm not just laying the bricks of like the first. I didn't want to be a founder or a Series A company. That's just too early. Anything later than that, then I may not have either the leverage or the impact that I want to have, because I wanted to have a cultural impact and build the company, which was a very product first, consumer first company with all the frameworks that I wanted to institutionalize, and basically wanted to see that does it work in the real world, and which is the company that's going to be able to trust me or to be able to do that. So that's one. Second one was I wanted to do a delta one with respect to learning. So I'd already come from a two-way marketplace, right? Like so, Snapdeal, Flipkart earlier, Walmart, all were two-way marketplaces. You have buyers, okay, millions of buyers at one end, hundreds of thousands of sellers at the other one. But essentially, they're buying from this huge catalogs of hundreds of millions of products, right? But it's always going to be a national catalog, and you can buy and all of that. But it's a two-way marketplace. Compare that or contrast that with say Uber. It's also a two-way marketplace. You have riders and passengers. In between, there are millions of cabs, but you have only 5 choices. There are only 5 SKUs in the e-commerce world. But the complexity comes because everything is real time in the 4 coordinates of time and space. You really have to make sure that at every snapshot there are enough number of riders, geographically placed, and passengers. What is the real time allocation? What is the real time rerouting and pricing and surging and all of that? That keeps on changing dot to dot and time to time. It's complex. But so I wanted to expand to three-way marketplaces. So two-way marketplace I had learned. Food delivery or quick commerce was a three-way marketplace. So the reason again for that is that when I think about growth, I wanted to join an organization where I'm not like a complete noob. I will be respected because of some insights that I got from previous learning. But at the same time, there is so much newness that it's going from 2 dimension to 3 dimensions. So that was kind of the second one. Third one was I have wanted to work with a founder that was like pure ambition, like a lot of ambition. Because if you want to have like a large impact, both with respect to your products that are going out and winning, and be like your own personal sense of, it could be the wealth or it could be my own products or and so on and so forth. So that was like kind of the third one where it really worked. Fourth one, it really need to be aligned with a change that I wanted to see in the country. Like the convenience is something that definitely was something that I wanted to see. Anybody should get anything whenever they want. Like that was really something aligned to my change. So those are the 4 things that I was going for. That's where Swiggy happened. But to be honest, you don't get all of the things together in a company. So I got lucky that I got an inbound from Swiggy, and to be honest, I didn't really know whether like all of those things were working. For example, I didn't know whether two-way consumer marketplace is like a really big thing or not. Series C or Series D is fine, but I didn't really know whether the company will do well or not. But at least I had these 4 things in writing. And then there were a lot of other companies that were approaching me. I said, all right, I'm not going to do any of those extremely large companies or small ones. But it was inbound, and I had a good run, and all of those things kind of worked well here. But given in Swiggy that I was able to actually expand into a revenue growth, merchandising, marketing, all of those things started reporting into me. I think a lot different kind of companies also started approaching for inbounds. Now it didn't need to be a product role. Now it didn't even need to be a food delivery role or a quick commerce role. Like it is complete difference in like, for example, I joined Jupiter for around 10, 11 months. Like it was a brief stint. Or even Cleartrip, like which is recent. Financial services was completely different than anything what I've done before. Travel is something that I've never touched in the last 20 years. It was like mostly commerce, consumer, and so on. So now the risk-taking ability is also improved. But I think at a leadership level, there are always going to be companies who want an outsider. It could be even outside of the domain, uh, or it could be outside of even the core, what do I say, skill set that they want to look for into this one. So I have been quite lucky on that part.
And how do product leaders who aren't getting the inbound you're getting kind of reverse engineer that inbound?
I think 2 things that you need to really happen is if they're product leaders, they must expand into owning outcomes. And I think if they have owned outcomes, 2 things really start to happen. One is the word spread. I think a lot of people start recognizing you as a person who delivers results. And that is true irrespective of whether you come from marketing, come from business, come from elsewhere. And there becomes like a lot of good, reputation spreading that happens amongst the industry, that people know that here is a person who has taken bets and delivered results, not only for within your company, but make sure that it happens across as well. That's one. B, I think it's a little bit different. I think um, you need to also make sure that you are a thought leader rather than only a leader within the company. So I think that thought leadership and making sure that so A is like doing good work, but B is making sure that people know that good work exists, and here are your thoughts, and here's how other recruiters slash leaders would imagine. They're almost imagining that if this person was in my company, that's how he would run this, and I resonate with that, and I want to talk. So you need to have like a lot of like open-ended thread that are going around with a lot of people, even without any intention of ever joining the company. If you are a helpful person, generally sharing good knowledge, a lot of inbounds actually do magically happen.
That's how I got my last 3 jobs. It sounds like that's how you got your last 3 jobs. So people do need to make time for that. It's not just about success, but the prerequisite is success. If you're not doing good work, focus on that first.
Um, Both the things. In fact, even if you are doing good work, but if success is not coming, and that does happen in probably more companies than the other way around. But the other part is still valuable, like the way you think, the way you operate, and the way you would run a company. If you're out there, then I think that word needs to still get out.
Anuj, I wish we could go for 4 more hours, but this has been a bevy of knowledge. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Aakash, for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Also, please consider giving us a rating or leaving a review, as that really helps other listeners find out about the podcast. You can find all the past episodes or learn more about the show at product-growth.com. See you in the next episode.